A beam of green magic struck Incity's head on, knocking her back into the central column and then to the ground. I instantly entered into Sats with 2 shots aimed at Chrysalis, while the third was sent hurtling at Kronos. Both shots hit the former, and yet somehow the acid barely seemed to faze her as she took to the air and glared right at us. As we all stepped backwards, I saw Kronos avoid the shot meant for him and start to fire back at us. "Scatter!" I shouted. We all moved very fast, and it was just as well. A beam of green magic erupting behind us as we started to move through the chamber. I heard Xena's rifle go off as I rounded on Queen Chrysalis, raising my rifle to fire again. I pulled the trigger 2 times, both looking to hit the Queen dead on before a shield formed around her and tanked both shots. Then she came for me. I jumped aside as Chrysalis landed right where I had been, probably having been seeking to shatter my bones. And with how bulked up and mutated her legs were, she probably would have flattened me. Her animalistic eyes met mine, a snarl escaping her lips as she charged me again. Only for another green beam of magic to hit Chrysalis in the side, sending her off her hooves. She crashed against a far wall, crushing a computer console as she quickly started to recover from the hit. Incities landed nearby, her rage actually somehow surpassing the look on Moonblossom's face after Ultrix was killed. "Assist your friends," Incities told me as her mother rose up and turned to face her. "I shall grant her the peace she deserves." I also got back up, giving her a sad smile. "I'm sorry." "We all are," she replied, before striking forwards to meet her mother in combat. I turned as green flames and the sound of clashing magic sounded behind me. I just ran as I rounded the chamber back to where my friends were locked against Kronos. Xena was ducking behind a console to avoid a red bolt of magic as Moonblossom jumped onto Kronos' back, slashing at the griffin with her combat knife. Moonblossom had apparently lost her saddlebags, while Xena's were smoldering from where they'd saved her from a bolt previously. I could only watch as the two tussled, unable to get a clear shot while Moonblossom did her thing. Kronos took to the air, flying backwards and straight into a wall. Moonblossom was winded from the impact, falling from Kronos' back with her knife stained with his blood. And yet Kronos seemed almost unhurt, probably at least partially protected by whatever augments Red Eye had given him. He shot forwards, spotting me and flaring his blade-tipped wings. My shot went wide, and I tried to move aside as he came down at me stupidly fast. I wasn't fast enough, a streak of pain crossing my chest as the blade sliced right through my barding like it was nothing. A gash opened up along my barrel, blood instantly beginning to pour as I collapsed onto the hard metal floor. Everything blurred from the excruciating pain. I don't know what those blades were made of, but fuck! I reached out with my magic, grabbing my saddlebag and looking for a healing potion. I found nothing. Kronos having shot the bag from my grip and away from me. The bag started to disintegrate, liquid from shattered healing potions beginning to leak, as my statuette came free and rolled away. A bullet hit Kronos in the side, managing to hit a weak spot and drawing blood, but it didn't even slow him down. Kronos darted towards Xena as she fired another shot, this one absorbed by his armor as he closed the distance. A gray blur barged into him, both he and Moonblossom sprawling away as I slowly tried to stand. My legs almost gave way, and without a healing potion... No! I am not letting a cut stop me! My friends needed me now more than ever, and I wasn't going to just lie down and die! I joined up with Xena, our eyes wordlessly meeting before we turned towards a recovering Kronos, and both opened up. Moonblossom kept her distance as several sniper rounds struck the Griffin. He avoided another of my shots, but was unable to scramble away from the second. The green bolt struck his wing, Kronos giving a shout of rage as the metal and flesh instantly started to melt away. I didn't get to fire a third. A large crash announcing Chrysalis as she landed in a heap between us and the Griffin. The mutated changeling was bruised and bloodied, but no more so than the changeling queen who followed us down. "I do this for you, mother!" Incity shouted, a huge attack gathering on her horn, as being fired down at Chrysalis as she quickly prepared and fired another one back. The ensuing clash was unlike anything I had ever seen. The entire room was illuminated in a blinding green glow, sparks and fire spitting everywhere as both beams of magic fought for dominance between the two changelings. It was like watching the goddesses themselves fight, the clash quickly becoming a stalemate between mother and daughter. I raised Venomous and fired at Chrysalis, striking her in the side before I had to break off to load in another cell. Xena also fired, yet our strikes didn't do so much as they should have. Her wounds did widen, but with the amount of resistance her mutations had given her, Incity's really had to be giving it her all just to hurt her. But our attack did have the intended effect of knocking the mutant's concentration down a peg, her magic failing and allowing Incities to come in close and send Chrysalis hurtling into the wall behind her. And yet, as Incities immediately tried to close in and finish the job, a sword of magic swept out from the kicked up dust and rubble. Incity swerved to avoid the blade, but nevertheless received a cut along her cheek. This was instantly followed up by a bolt of magic that knocked the princess backwards. Chrysalis took off after her, not slowing down despite her mounting injuries. With the way clear of the two changelings, we were greeted by the sight of Kronos firing his weapons after a swerving and dodging Moonblossom, the Pegasus continuing to hound the Griffin in any way she could. "How do you like that?" she shouted as she dived down and bucked at Kronos. As she moved away, my breath caught in my throat as a red beam hit her in her unarmored side. "Moon!" I rushed forwards, despite the fact that I was still losing blood, and raised my rifle to fire at Kronos as Moon crashed to the ground. My shots missed, Kronos ducking beneath them as he charged me. I tried to dodge, but a torrent of pain from my barrel stopped my effort. A balled-up fist hit my face, knocking me to the ground. Everything became muted as I suffered the impact, though I faintly heard the sound of Xena's rifle firing before my mare friend gave a shout of pain. That got my attention. I looked back up, seeing Zelina collide with a console after being knocked aside by Kronos' remaining wing. He stood over her prone form, his weapons charging. Fuck, no! I grabbed Venomous, firing a shot at Kronos and relishing in his shout as he was knocked aside with both of his shots going wide. He skidded around, facing me with a rage in both his normal and metal eye as one of his guns melted from its mounting. But I kept shooting. I had to. With both of my friends seemingly out, it was just me and him. I would not go down. I would not! He fired back, my barding thankfully absorbing the impact. I fired 3, the first going wide, while he failed to dodge the other 2 of my shots, too busy rushing toward me. The first hit his second weapon, also rendering it useless. Better yet, the second just about skimmed his robotic eye as he tried to duck beneath it. It was just enough that the acid instantly started to eat into the prosthetic. But he didn't stop. I fired another bolt, but it went wide as Kronos reached me and grabbed me by the throat. I couldn't help it, but the force of his grip forced me to drop Venomous as he started to drag me across the nearest catwalk. Panic was rising through my stomach as I struggled and kicked out. I flailed with a hoof and smacked his face, but it didn't loosen his tough-ass grip in the least. Then, out of the blue, I lost focus on everything. Everything swam as something hit my back. My entire sense of direction knocked from me. I couldn't make out much, but even when everything did return, I couldn't do much but watch as Kronos stood over me. His red eye had melted and died, leaving him with only his natural one. I think that pissed him off. I couldn't muster any kind of strength, sitting against the central column he had smashed me against, as he grabbed onto the front of my barding with a metallic claw and ripped it effortlessly away. I have worked too hard to build everything that surrounds us. You shall not succeed, pony! And then I screamed, the claw returning and embedding its talons into my chest. Goddess, I could feel the metal inside me. They scratched and clawed, my body and Pip-Buck both screaming along with me as he started digging for my heart. Get off my friend! I just heard Moonblossom shout as she embedded her knife into Kronos' back, getting him off of me as she again started to grapple. They fought, Moon hitting out at the slaver with all she had, while I could only sit. I tried so hard, gathering as much strength as I could, but even as I attempted to rise, the pain and gushing blood stopped me, and I fell right back again. A glance at my Pip-Buck revealed just how bad my injuries were, the little stable colt's eyes each being a dead X. But then something far worse than my own condition occurred. Moonblossom punched Kronos right across the face, the strike coinciding with another flash of green from across the room. Kronos responded with a claw across her face, getting a shout from my friend as she stumbled backwards. And then, in an unthinkable moment, he pulled the knife from his back and plunged it into her neck. All time stopped. I couldn't feel any pain. Nothing else even mattered as I looked right into Moonblossom's wide eyes. Everything was blank as we stared each other, almost like it was all just one big nightmare. It was not. Kronos stepped back, leaving the knife in her neck as he stumbled. Her eyes kept staring into mine with horror and regret. And then all of that faded away for sadness alone. Was I a good pony? Moonblossom collapsed, giving one last gurgle as her bar blinked out. No! The bullet struck Kronos in what was left of his cybernetic eye, tearing it out and leaving a hole in the side of his head. He turned to face Xena, my friend standing at the other end of the catwalk with a look of sheer heartbreak in her eyes. I lit my horn, reaching outwards. I couldn't stand, but I could still use my magic. Xena charged, firing another bullet that just shrugged off of him. He moved towards her, intent on ending the life of a third friend. No, I refuse! I entered into Sats one last time. Venomous retrieved and aimed straight at the bastard. I lined up every possible shot, every percentage being extremely high to hit. And then, ready to end that son of a bitch for good, I engaged the spell. Venomous fired, and I gave absolutely all I had at Kronos. And because of it, he never reached Xena. Green bolts of changeling magic cascaded against the surprised Kronos, several in the back and one in the leg, causing him to fall as his back paw dislocated from the rest of his body. His flesh, armor, and cybernetics all started to sizzle as the acid did its work. Kronos, before our eyes, started to melt. And yet he rose once more, turning to face me with a look of sheer defeat as his own body collapsed around him.
I did my duty.
Xena approached the griffin, placed the barrel of her rifle to his head, and pulled the trigger. There was a spray of blood and metal, the griffin jerking as his head was eviscerated from the rest of his body. What was left of him quickly decomposed into a green goop, and he fell. The red bar blinked out. A strange silence falling around us. Kronos was no more. Scrap! Xena shouted in pain as she rushed towards me. I tried to give her my best smile, but I wasn't sure how good it could be amidst all the blood. Hey, I said to her as she dropped by my side, immediately seeing to my wounds. You will be okay, she promised me, but from the state of her saddlebags, I was guessing her healing potions were about as good as mine. She paused, her eyes turning towards our friend. Oh, Moonblossom is... I know. Moonblossom was dead. I had failed to save another friend. Why did this happen? Xena whimpered, resting her head against mine. I tried to muzzle her comfortingly, fighting my own inner pits of despair. She was going to be an aunt someday. I looked at her body. All she had hoped to do after today, everything she had wanted to be, all gone. All because of him. All because I couldn't do more. I had lost 2 friends, and there was nothing I could do to change that. It was the most soul-crushing experience imaginable. The dread filling my body was... I couldn't describe it no matter how much I tried. But she didn't even need to ask me that question. Moonblossom was a good pony. Forever. I glanced to the side at a nearby thud, chrysalis landing in a heap. The mutated changeling queen gasped, trying to stand before falling back down again. Insidies landed atop her, bloodied and bruised, but alive. Rest peacefully until our reunion, Mother. For all our differences, I love you. A magical sword formed above Chrysalis, plunging into her brain and silencing that last red bar. Insidies, clearly pained, let the sword dissolve as she placed a tender hoof on her mother's corpse. Another remnant of the old world was gone forever. Queen Insidies, Xena gently called out, the changeling looking a bit taken aback by the title, but then resigned. Please! The queen of the changelings approached, crouching down beside me as her horn lit up. I felt her magic wash over me, almost like it was probing every part of my body. And then she sighed. I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with the level of healing magic required for this. Perhaps an oversight on my part, she replied regretfully. And at that moment I felt my own wave of resignation fall onto me. Without a healing potion, he's not going to make it out of here alive. No. No. I refuse to accept that. Xena shouted defiantly, and all I could do was give her a sad smile. We will take him. He will live. Xena, I said softly. Shut up, she snapped. You will be fine. You will. And then she broke down, everything becoming too much for the mare I love. She buried her head into my neck, letting out her sorrows. I let my tears join hers, even in cities not immune to the effect as she watched on. I placed a hoof around Xena, holding her close. The mare who had brought out the best in me. The mare I'd wanted to spend my life with. The mare who had to live. Take her? I asked of the queen. She nodded. Of course. No! Xena protested, looking back up. We go together! I kissed her. Our lips met, hers trembling horribly. It was a beautiful moment, and one I wanted to hold close as I lay dying. My horn lit up, reaching out for 2 discarded objects. When I pulled away, I presented her with Venomous and the Twilight Sparkle statuette. Take them, I told her. Not much use to me now. Please. Scrap. I gently pushed them forwards, Xena taking hold of both. I so wanted that family, I think, I told her. To spend my life with you, to see if we made a difference. But, goddesses, Xena, I'm so sorry. She shook, letting out a tired breath. I love you, Scrap. I love you too. I returned, looking down at my pip-buck. One last thing. I unclasped the device, and for the first time since all this started, my vision became clear of any kind of heads-up display. No map markers, no vital signs, no eyes forward sparkle, no sets. Nothing. I took Xena's hoof, she only staring in shock as I locked the pip-buck into place around it. It's really quite useful, I told her with a pained laugh. And, could be a memento, I guess. I do not need this to remember you, she replied, staring at her new pip-buck. But thank you. I don't... Live, Xena. Please live. For all we never got to do. Find Cobalt and get out of here. Both of you need to live. For all of us who didn't make it. Her trembling increased, but she nodded nevertheless. Good. Are you seeking a way to destroy this place? Insidious then asked, and I glanced to see her on the terminal attached to the central column. It's unlocked. Fools have the self-destruct just sitting there. Right. overloading the balefire reactors, just like Cobalt said. I grunted as I started to drag myself along to the terminal, Xena reluctantly helping me along. She helped me sit down right by the terminal, ready to use it. I hadn't imagined that this would be how I would die, but damn, it certainly was a blaze of glory. Fuck, though, I didn't want to die. I wanted to get up and leave with them. Live a full life, see what that kick-ass Sony could have been. So much to do and see. A story left unfinished, and yet, I was oddly okay with it too. Xena lives. Cobalt lives. The changelings would live. Xena sniffed, holding my hoof in her own. I will tell your story, like a Zenkori should. I will tell it to all who will hear it. And to those who don't? She gave a small laugh. They will be forced to hear it anyway. That got a small smile out of me. And then I just started looking up into the face of my love. Just one last time. We should leave, Incity said softly. There is much to be done. But, Xena, I said softly. Go. She stood still, looking down at me. Then she leaned in and kissed me on the cheek. She stood back up without breaking eye contact, clearly trying very hard not to break down again. Goodbye, scrap heap. Xena then looked up at Incides, giving her a nod before turning away. Both of them started to walk, retreating back out through the entrance and out of sight. Goodbye. Well, this is me. Here. In this place. Some random scavenger about to go up in a balefire blast of my own making. It was almost a weird joke. One I half wanted to laugh and half wanted to cry at, and I gotta say, I'm scared. Yet I found myself turning toward the terminal anyway. I activated the console, bringing up the menu and scrolling through it until I found the option. Taking in a breath, fighting off the incoming darkness, I opened it up and set the countdown. All around me, the moment I confirmed the action, alarms started to blare as a voice started warning of the incoming destruction. Haven would be wiped off the map. I just hoped they were all far away when it happened. They'll probably use the subway tunnels, but they would get out. I knew they would. I turned back around, slumping against the pillar once again. You know, I felt oddly naked without my pip-buck. It was just me and my battered barding slowly bleeding out. I didn't even know how much time was passing, how close Site B was to destruction. Even the regular voice warnings had blurred incoherently. Very quickly, I stopped making sense of everything. And that really gives a pony time to think. Do you know how your life is meant to flash before your eyes when you die? Well, it's true. But it started not from the day of my birth, but from the day my life had truly begun. Brown.